Thank you for joining us today on 10 Minutes with the Artist, an episodic series that explores the art practice and the personal vision that guides artists. On today's episode, we're very proud to have Richard Maas, who is completing his thesis in architecture at North Dakota State University. We invited him here today to speak about his research and the creation of artifacts in preparation for his defense. Richard's work challenges the way we expect to interact with art and architecture. His collection of frames covered in thin white paper invite viewers to become more essential in the process of interacting, understanding, and maintaining a relationship with both art and the institution. I'm Anthony Ferris, and this is 10 Minutes with the Artist. So Richard, thank you very much for joining us today on 10 Minutes with the Artist. I was curious where the perfect location would be to sort of view and experience this work.
The actual artifact, I don't envision it having a perfect angle. I don't think it's something that you just stand in one spot and look at. Because of the nature of the artifact, it compresses space, it compresses time, and it compresses so many different visual angles. Everything from how close you're standing, how far away, how many people are behind it, and how you first come into contact with the artifact. There's just so many factors with the artifact and the piece itself. There is no one way. There's really no one way to view it. I think if there was a perfect way to see the artifact, it'd be walking around, it'd be experiencing it. Definitely more than just one person, but with one person it would work. You couldn't understand the concept by walking up, interacting with it. But I definitely see it as something you move around about and you experience in real time and space, not just standing still looking at a 2D or a flat image.
Was there like a difference between like seeing this work in a public space versus maybe a private space? Where can this be installed and still like get across the concept?
I'd like to think that it's kind of sightless. I'd like to imagine that because of the nature of the artifact, it's hung from the eye loops, so it's because there's no frame, there's mounting. You don't mount it to a wall. It doesn't sit on something. Nothing holds it up. It hangs completely independent of any sort of environment. I like to think you can put it anywhere. Yeah, I could see it in the streets. I could see it in galleries. I could see it in people's homes. I could literally see this kind of confronting the public almost anywhere.
Okay. As you mentioned, there's a participatory element to this, which makes me think that you should view it with two people. What does that say about the concept that you have, and how is it different if you are just one person viewing it?
You definitely need, you don't need more than one person, but it is difficult with one person. The way I see it is something that you walk up to and you interact and you see it and you try to understand what it is that I'm getting at. And if you were alone, I'm imagining you being completely alone. So, you walk up to it and you touch it, you'd interact with it, and that's when you would move your hands, or you might see something through the translucent paper, and that would kind of, that right there, the seeing through it, seeing the distorted image, where you can look around it, and you know something's there, but you can't grasp it in its totality. You don't have the total understanding of what you're looking at on the other side.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think it stands on its own really well. I almost feel like it'd have more of a moving presence if you were alone, because you'd have that level of exploration that those steps you'd have to take on your own. Whereas if you were with a group of people, it might sort of happen so fast you wouldn't even notice it. You just start seeing these shapes moving behind it, and the shapes themselves will draw you to them versus the actual artifact drawing you to it, and then you seeing through the artifact.
Some of them are high, some of them are low.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a traditional way that gallery directors traditionally hang a
Mm-hmm.
piece.
Mm-hmm.
So why is this different than that?
The reason that they're not all the same size or at the same level, I wanted to capture different parts of the human body, different parts of the surroundings. I wanted to, I know there's one that is actually hanging a lot lower than the other ones, and that one I kind of wanted to capture a different perspective that we don't normally see every single day, and that perspective would be, I think it was about 3 feet off the ground. So that would be kind of altering your perspective and then changing that perspective as looking through the artifact, compressing space and time and all of the different views and stuff. So that's why they have varying sizes and they're hung at varying different heights and stuff, is to further kind of distort our perspectives.
Okay. In some states, there's this 1% tax for public buildings where they put 1% of whatever the budget is into art.
Mm-hmm.
And in some places, there's no priority
Mm-hmm.
for that at all. So I was wondering what the relationship was between art and architecture as a reflection of society.
Oh man, art and architecture is, I mean, you're getting right at my thesis, so I mean, how much time do we have? 10 minutes? But the relationships between art and architecture and society is interesting because at the onset, there was no art and architecture. It was the same thing. It was embodied in the same vessel. If somebody was to build a temple, it was art and architecture simultaneously. They didn't waste time and resources in separating these two disciplines. And then when you fast forward to modern day times, art and architecture are very much separated. You know, we have tilt-up panel walls for buildings, and we have art that you can only find in a gallery or in, mega museums. And I think that is, so I think what the project is trying to do is it's trying to bring art back into the public. Not necessarily in a way where I'm installing art somewhere, but where art is now being thought of as a part of everyday life.
Okay.
If that gets, I mean,
Yeah.
I got 9 months on this topic, so I could go forever on this thesis thing, but if I had to sum it up in an elevator talk.
We'll change SD cards and then we'll get to the next part of it. Some of your work deals with institutional critique,
Mm-hmm.
and I was curious if you could tell me one positive and one negative thing about the institution.
The actual institution of art. The institution of art, it gives you an incredible pedestal to stand on. Like right now I'm talking on 10 Minutes with the Artist, and that's, it's an incredible pedestal. I'm probably going to reach a couple hundred people if I'm lucky, and so that's nice. You get recognition. I know they got the Turner Prize in England and MoMA. They give you a platform to make a statement that your art stands and people look at it simply because of the institution. The negative thing about the institution is that when they were at the inception of the institution, these museums were for the betterment of society, of public as a whole, and slowly over time, they've become more concerned about their donors, political or corporate or, otherwise, than they are with the actual people. So, best case scenario, you have a machine for enlightenment, and the worst case scenario, you have a propaganda machine for the masses. So
We'll be back right after this commercial. Just kidding.
I don't know if we had commercials.
I'm just kidding with you.
I don't know what to say when at 100 viewers. I'll be editing that part out. Just edit that part out. It gives me an incredible pedestal and just cut to like a picture or something.
So I guess at the very end of our discussion, we'd like to ask about your sort of creative practice. So can you tell me a little bit about what time of day you feel like you're most creative?
I don't believe in creativity at all. I don't think that's a thing. I think, I've been doing this thesis since August, and the idea that creativity is something that just kind of happens, or is that, that spark, that one moment. If that was true, that one moment happened, August 18th at the start of the semester, and then now I've been doing the same. That one moment has driven this entire thesis. I don't believe in creativity. I think you sit down at your desk, and I think you force yourself to work, whether or not you're feeling creative or whether or not you're inspired. I think you just work. And the process itself builds and evolves around itself. I don't wait for inspiration to move me. I don't wait for creativity. I just kind of sit down and I start doing, and the actions inspire other actions.
Okay. Do you listen to music or anything like that when you're making work?
Music, especially right now, because we only got a couple of months left until it's due. I kind of start the morning off listening to music, and then I have to finish the night with like audiobooks or podcasts. I can only go through my iTunes library so many times before it's just the same songs. And so I'm really all over the board with what I listen to. Sometimes I might watch a little bit of Netflix, but that tends to spiral out of control, and then I'm not doing anything. So.
Okay. Are you reading anything right now?
Am I reading anything? The Relevance of the Beautiful by Hans Georg Gadamer. That definitely hits close to home of what my thesis is about. I've read that book about twice now, and I'm going through on the third try. So every time I read it, there's something new. There's more there. Okay. There's more to think about. So that's great. Definitely a lot of material.
And then I guess my last question would be, what's next for you?
Oh, man. I'm not really thinking long-term yet. I see the light at the end of the tunnel. We got our thesis presentations due here in about 2 weeks, and then we have to give the actual presentation of the class. So I'm just looking at the end of the tunnel. As soon as May hits, it's kind of like, that's when I start thinking long-term, start thinking about jobs, where I want to live and stuff, and getting your life together at that point. But right now I'm just focusing so hard on these next 2 weeks and getting all this stuff wrapped up.
Okay. Well, thank you so very much, and I'd like to thank you all for your time and your interest in the professional practice and the creative explorations happening here at North Dakota State University. So thank you, and for everyone here at the Memorial Union Gallery, keep creative.